Well, the Blue Jackets weekend started out strong, got very bad very quick, and then they finished on a high. They had one win, one loss. We're going to talk about both of those, and it's Mailbag Monday, so we got a ton of stuff coming up for you on today's Locked On Blue Jackets.
Locked On Blue Jackets, your daily podcast on the Columbus Blue Jackets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Blue Jackets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am, as always, your host, Jay Foster, here to bring you news, stories, game recaps, game previews, ranting, and all of the above and more about your favorite team and mine, the Columbus Blue Jackets. Before we get started, I want to thank everyone for making this your first listen of the day every day. Locked On Blue Jackets is free and available on all podcast platforms and also over on YouTube. So if you're not subscribed over there, then feel free to go and hit that button. It helps me out. It helps you out. Everybody wins. Now, today, like I said, we have to talk about the Penguins game. Not good. But we also get to talk about the Rangers game, which is 2 thumbs up for me. So we'll start off with the Penguins game and then talk about the more fun game, which was the Rangers game. The Blue Jackets lose 6-3 to the Pittsburgh Penguins after, frankly, a really good kind of first half of the game. They had a phenomenal first period. They outshot the Penguins like 12-2, scored 2 goals, and it was 2-0 going into first intermission. I was like, this is great. I'm having a lot of fun. Unfortunately, because the Penguins are who they are and the Blue Jackets are who they are, it was not to be. They cut the deficit to 1 with a unexpected goal, and then it just kind of all fell apart after that. Ken Johnson's first NHL goal could not overcome the Penguins' everything. It was 3-2 going into the third period, I believe. It was 2-1, and then it was 3-1 with Ken Johnson's first NHL goal, and then offensive dynamo Jan Rutta scored to make it 3-2. Danton Heinen scored to make it 3-3. And then because this team hates me, the Penguins, not the Blue Jackets, although I do suspect that the Blue Jackets hate me as well. Goals from Sidney Crosby, Danton Heinen again, and Brock McGinn in the third period. Those last two coming about 45 seconds apart to seal the victory for the Penguins. Just after a really solid kind of first 30-ish minutes of play, the Blue Jackets kind of crumbled. It wasn't even 30 minutes. It was more like 25. The Ken Johnson goal came 3:57 into the second period, about 12 seconds after the Josh Archibald goal opened the scoring for the Penguins. And just what a mess of a second period and third period. 5 unanswered goals. Not great. Elvis, 6 goals on 39 shots, also not great. The power play continues to suffer. They only had 1 power play opportunity, though, which was suspicious. It came super early in the first period. Brian Rust took a penalty, and then after that, it was 3 straight Blue Jackets penalties. Penalty kill remained strong, at least, and I don't know. Just this was a weird game. It felt exactly like the game that was going to happen, regardless. Really good to see Boone Jenner get his first of the season. Really good to see Jack Roslovic get his first of the season. That was a phenomenal goal. The shorthanded goal on a breakaway just really kind of did it all himself. Phenomenal shot. Again, great to see Kent Johnson get his first of the season, the first of his career, first of many, we hope. At least first of 2. We're going to talk about Ken Johnson's game against the Rangers in a minute, but for the most part, it was just kind of it started so well, is the thing. That's what I can't get over. So the shots were 17-7 in the first period, and then the Penguins clearly didn't like that. They came out and got 16-6 in the second, 16-9 in the third to outshoot the Blue Jackets 39-32. Just the thing about the Penguins is that they just seem to have a switch. And if they have a rough first period, they could just be like, okay, well, we're going to do better. And they can go out and be just the team that they've been for the last 17 years, more or less. Which, by the way, it feels bonkers that this is the 17th season where they've had Crosby, Malkin, and Letang as a trio. Like, just bananas that trio only has 3 cups in that time frame, but that's beside the point. It's tough to look at what was good and what was bad in this game because it was such a kind of a tale of 2 games. The first half of the game, they did everything excellently. Second half of the game, everything was bad. Everything was bad. They lose Justin Danforth to injury, which doesn't help. But it's just, I don't know, it's one of those games that you just kind of, are there some good things to look at? Yeah. But if you can't do those good things all 60 minutes, then like maybe you should just throw the game away and start again the next day, which is I think what they did. They took the first period that they had against the Penguins and were like, right, can we do this for a full 60 minutes against New York the next day? And the answer turns out to be yes, they can. And we're going to talk about that game in just a minute because, frankly, it's way more fun than talking about yet another loss to the Penguins. So that's coming up in a minute on Locked On Blue Jackets. But first, I've got to tell you about SimpliSafe because the numbers do not lie. In the last decade, over 4 million people have chosen SimpliSafe Home Security to protect their home, and you don't earn the trust of that many people without doing something right. At SimpliSafe, your safety is the only thing that matters. They protect you with cutting-edge security technology powered by 24/7 professional monitoring agents who always have your back. With the 24/7 professional monitoring, the agents call you the moment a threat is detected. They dispatch police or first responders in an emergency, even if you're at home or you can't be reached, which is super cool. They have got HD cameras for inside and outside your home. They've got sensors for every room, every window, every door, the backyard, the front yard, the driveway, the garage. They've got smarter ways to detect motion that only alerts you when a threat is real, and even hazard sensors that detect fires, floods, and other threats to your home. So not just people. If the flood levels are getting a little high, they can let you know about that as well, which I think is really, really cool. They use proprietary advanced response technology to visually confirm when a break-in is real, so you can get the highest priority police dispatch. And like I said, it's 24/7 monitoring. So even if you're asleep or away or at work, SimpliSafe is paying attention, which is really great. So customize the perfect system for your home in just a few minutes at simplisafe.com/lockedonnhl. You can save 20% on your SimpliSafe security system when you sign up for an interactive monitoring plan, and you get your first month for free. Once again, visit simplisafe.com/lockedonnhl to learn more because there's no safe like SimpliSafe. So let's talk about the second game of the weekend, which, frankly, like I said, was a lot more fun. The Blue Jackets beat the New York Rangers, which is always a good start to any sentence, 5-1. Just a real good team effort. Everyone had a part to play. Daniil Tarasov gets his first NHL win. He was phenomenal. I believe 30 of 31 saves. The only goal that went in was in the last second of a 5-on-3 power play for the Rangers. But we'll get to that in a minute. Zach Werenski opens the scoring. Again, a really solid first period for the Blue Jackets. They got outshot 6-9 or 9-6, excuse me. But they came out on top, 1-0. Penalty kill remained strong. Extended the scoring lead. Andrew Peeke gets his first of the season. Igor Chinakov gets his first of the season. Everyone is scoring their first of the seasons at the minute. I believe that's 5 players scored their first goal. 6 players actually, because Eric Robinson scored his first of the season as well to make it 4-1. Artemi Panarin on the 5-on-3 after, I believe it was Branson and Gavrikov were in the box, which is not a great combination for your penalty kill, considering those are your guys that you put on the penalty kill a lot. So I don't know what's going on there, but they decided that they were going to take a bunch of penalties. Rangers make them pay. Artemi Panarin, who is, I believe, either leading the league or tied for the league lead in points, scores I think it's only like his 5th goal of the season, but it's his 12th point, his 4th goal of the season, excuse me. Makes it 3-1 going into the second period, and I start to maybe get a little bit worried. I'm like, there's still a lot of time left. The Blue Jackets don't love to respect me in the third period, but this time they do. Eric Robinson gets his first. We thought for a second it was Eric Branson getting his first, which would have been a real shock. But that's his third period. That's his third point in 7 games, I believe. So he's doing better than expected. Did he take a couple of stupid penalties in this game? Yes, that was again kind of what I expected. He was coming in. He was behind schedule, frankly. So unsurprised, but for the most part, the Blue Jackets managed to kill it off. Kent Johnson scores his second goal in like 24 hours. So he's got 2 goals in the last 2 games. Real impressed with him. Like, I feel like I've spent this entire week talking about how great Kent Johnson is and how good he's going to be. But I mean, I think he's finally starting to figure it out. And I'm excited to see how he does against Arizona as well. And we're going to talk a little bit more about Kent Johnson in the next segment because we're going to do a mailbag segment and there's a question that I think Kent Johnson is going to come up in. So we're going to talk about his game in a minute. But I do also want to just like, the team continues to not score on the power play, is the thing. They only had 1 power play again. They got 1 very late penalty in the third period, or near the start of the third period, I should say. Did basically nothing with it, but it's fine. They did get out face-offed by the Rangers, which is not great. In terms of individual performances, then I assume Boone Jenner was the only good face-off guy. Sean Corrali sitting at 20%. Cole Sillinger sitting at 55.6%, actually. Boone Jenner had a rough night in the faceoff dot, only 25%, and Jack Roslovic sitting at 41%. So Cole Sillinger really kind of improving. He had just over 12 minutes of ice time, which is way up from the like 8.5 that he got against, I believe, Nashville. So that's really good to see. Ken Johnson is still kind of hovering around that 11 to 12 minute mark. I'd love to see him get more ice time. I really would. And maybe, 2 goals in 2 games. They're playing a very weak Arizona team on Tuesday. Maybe we can take advantage of that a little bit, get the kids some extended minutes and really see what they can do. But yeah, just like to finish off the segment. This was a really good game. Like, did they? I believe they got outshot because the Blue Jackets almost always get outshot. Yeah, 31-21. But Tarasov stood tall. The penalty kill continues to be strong. That was their first power play goal allowed in like 13 or 14 attempts, I believe, and they're still sitting in the top 10 in the league. They are 8th overall. They're sitting at 85.7% on the penalty kill. So we appear to have returned to a state of, okay, yeah, the power play is cursed, but the penalty kill is still doing pretty good. So would I rather the power play was succeeding as well? Yes, absolutely. But if we have to have a special teams unit be good, then having the penalty kill be good is not the worst thing, especially since the Blue Jackets seem to take a lot of penalties this season, which is unlike them and upsetting to me personally. But shout out to Daniil Tarasov once again, first NHL win. He was phenomenal. Again, we got a question about goalies in the mailbag, so we're going to talk a little bit more about Tarasov in a second. And that's kind of my roundup of the weekend's games. 1 very good game, 1 very bad game. Blue Jackets are probably somewhere in the middle of these 2 games. We'll see how they do against Arizona on Tuesday night. I suspect pretty well because it's it's Arizona, frankly. But that's all coming up in a little bit. In a minute, we're going to do our mailbag segment. I got some really fun, good questions, so we're just going to jump straight into those as soon as I tell you all about game to game. Because once you've made Locked On Blue Jackets your first listen, you can make your second listen Game to Game NHL. Every moment, every top performance, every result. Locked On Game to Game covers every game from across the NHL with local analysis that only Locked On can deliver. You can follow Game to Game on Locked On NHL, available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. So, mailbag. We have, like I said, we've got a bunch of really good questions. Let's start with the goalie one because boom goes the cannon at Green9510 on Twitter. Everyone's going to ask a question. Might as well get it out of the way. Do you play the hot hand with Tarasov or do you let Elvis beat up on an easier Arizona team? Also, great job, Tarasov. I agree. Great job, Tarasov. I am kind of in 2 minds about this. I think, for better or worse, the net is Elvis's. He is the starting goalie. I don't think he's going to get supplanted by Tarasov, who has all of 6 NHL games. Like, weirder things have happened, but Elvis is the starter. If they need to give him like a gimme game to get his confidence up, then I'm okay with that. Especially they are kind of they've got a not a relaxed schedule, but I think, they don't have another back-to-back for a minute. I believe their next back-to-back might actually be the Tampa Bay games in Finland. So they have a game on Tuesday against Arizona. They don't play again until Friday. Then they play Sunday, and then they don't play a game for 4 days, and then they have the back-to-back against Colorado, and then they have another 4 days before they're back to Philadelphia. And then the next back-to-back after that is Detroit, Florida. So honestly, I could see Elvis basically playing every game. So Arizona, Boston, New Jersey on Sunday, the 2 Colorado games, Philadelphia, New York, Philadelphia again, Montreal, and then one of Detroit or Florida, probably Florida, which is a shame because I think Tarasov needs to get maybe a few more reps than he probably will get. But they've made it clear they want to ride Elvis as long as they possibly can. They want him to get as many games in, whether that's him building up his confidence or him developing more as a goalie. Like, I could see them playing Tarasov for a couple of those games, especially teams like Philadelphia or Montreal. Even potentially a game like New Jersey if they want to make sure that Elvis is healthy and ready for the 2 Colorado games. Like, we might see Tarasov in one of those Colorado games, frankly. But I would expect to see Elvis for the bulk of kind of the rest of October and the first half of November, certainly. So while I get the impulse to ride the hot hand and, go with Tarasov, who I thought, again, has been really good to start the season. He had a really good game against Carolina. Was only okay against Tampa Bay, but I feel like most goalies are probably only okay against Tampa Bay. And then he was phenomenal against New York. So who knows? Maybe the coaching staff likes Tarasov. Maybe they go with Tarasov for a couple of games. I would expect to see Elvis in tomorrow's matchup against Arizona, just because, like you say, it's a gimme, essentially. Now that I've said that, the Blue Jackets are going to lose embarrassingly to Arizona because the Blue Jackets love to prove me wrong. But maybe they need to give Elvis an easy game, get his confidence up in time to kind of play a tough Boston team, New Jersey, and then a Stanley Cup defending Colorado team. So if they want a game for him to get his confidence back up, get his numbers back up, like, Arizona's a really good option for it. So that's kind of my opinion. I wouldn't be surprised to see Tarasov, but I do think we are going to see Elvis. Another question: who sits when Laine is back? This is a really tough question. I mean, right now the answer is going to be Liam Foodie, who, in fairness, I thought had a great game. I didn't even mention him against the Rangers. He had 2 assists. He looked really good. That was his first meaningful hockey game since like January 30th, I believe. So he had a great game. However, he's not Patrik Laine. I think he sits, and I think they're happier to take him out of the lineup than they would be if Justin Danforth was still in that spot. Justin Danforth is out indefinitely, is what they've said, which I assume means that they don't quite know how long yet. Again, I think the light schedule is going to help this. He probably won't miss too many games. They have, I think, 3 games this week, 2 games next week, and then 2 games the week after that. So a really, really light schedule. But that's really the only option for me, I think, is taking Liam Foodie out if Laine comes back before Danforth does. And then I think the other thing that they'll do is probably look at taking Kent Johnson out of the lineup, which is a shame, but it is just kind of like looking at the roster. There isn't really anyone. Like, you could take maybe Eric Robinson out, but I've really liked Eric Robinson, and they love that 4th line. They love the Robinson, Corelli, Olivier line. I would take Olivier out as well, personally. But just looking at the lineup, like Chinikov, now that he's really started to heat up, he's got 5 points in his last 3 games. He's potentially an option, but I think they probably want to keep him in, especially if he continues to heat up. Foodie, we've mentioned. Obviously, Gaudreau, Jenner, Nyquist, Roslovic, Sillinger, Voracek are all staying in the lineup. So really, it kind of comes down to, do they want Liam Foodie healthy scratched, or do they want to send Kent Johnson down to Cleveland to maybe get some meaningful minutes with the Monsters while the Blue Jackets are in Finland? Because I assume that Laine will be back for those 2 games against Finland. And after that, who knows? Maybe he comes back for those 2 games and then goes back on IR for 2 weeks because he came back too soon because he wanted to play in Finland. That seems like a thing that a hockey player would do. It's a much tougher question than it would have been maybe 2 weeks ago. I was immediately like, well, obviously Kent Johnson's going to sit because that's like the most logical choice. But now with Danforth out, and also with Kent Johnson scoring 2 goals in 2 games and really looking dominant in the minutes that he's playing, that becomes a much harder. It's much harder to take him out of the lineup now than it was, 2, maybe 3 games ago. So obviously, those are your options. Do you take Liam Foodie out? Do you take Kent Johnson out? Or do you break up that 4th line, which Brad Larson really loves? Who's to say? There's just no way of knowing, but it does feel very much like it's going to be that first option. If Danforth is back, makes it a little bit harder. I think Laine will be back before Danforth is, because indefinitely doesn't sound great. And who's to say? Maybe they will surprise us. Maybe they'll do something insane and take like Cole Cylinder out of the lineup for a couple of games. But he's one of the only legitimate centers that they have. So then it becomes, Patrik Laine plays on the left side for the most part. I believe he's been playing on the right side now that Gaudreau's here. But, do you take a center out of the lineup to put an elite winger in? Probably not. So my money is on Foodie or Kent Johnson. And that's kind of all I've got for you today. Tomorrow, we've got another squad cast coming your way. I'm sitting down with Robin Leano of Locked On Coyotes. I'm going to talk to her all about how the Coyotes are doing this season, how they are going with their tanking for Connor Bedard strategy. We'll take a look at the matchup, maybe make some fun predictions. And so that's coming up on tomorrow's episode. Thank you all for listening. Thank you for making this your first listen of the day every day. Locked On Blue Jackets continues to be free and available on all podcast platforms and also over on YouTube. So if you haven't hit subscribe throughout this episode, then and you've enjoyed this episode, then why not hit the subscribe button right now? I've been Jay Foster. You can find me on Twitter at _Jacob Foster, JAKOBFORSTER. You can find this podcast at LO_Blue Jackets. If you have comments, questions, criticisms, you can email me at lockedonbluejackets@gmail.com. And until tomorrow, make sure you stay locked on.